Today on Rambling About Cars, new BMW, new Lotus, new electrified Bentley, new Golf R station wagon. What? The final Aventador. And if that's not enough, how about a road trip in a six-figure Cadillac Escalade? Bodacious ballers, it's podcast time. I'm Christopher Smith. Across the way is Chris Bruce. How was your holiday, man?
It was okay. It was kind of had to stay at home for some sick dog reasons, but it is what it is. But this week we have with us
Cooper's recovering. We got to make it clear, listeners. Cooper is doing good. Awesome. That's great news.
But we have Motor One worldwide managing editor John Neff with us this week. He went on a hell of a cool trip that you guys will get to hear about in the second part of our show. But let's get things rolling. Let's talk about the new BMW 2 Series Coupe. How about that?
Let's talk about the 2 Series Coupe here.
Which has caused a lot of debate, consternation, good and bad feels in our office. I'll be throwing up a photo here. We know about it in both the M form and the standard form. And you guys will get to see that for anyone watching on YouTube. But Smith, tell us a little bit about it.
So, I mean, what you're talking about with the debate, there's some debate on how it looks. We need to say something right off the bat, because if you can't see this on our YouTube page, Motor One Podcasts, there is no big grill on the 2 Series. There is no big grill. But if you look at the nose of the M240,
which we're looking at now, it's the purple one.
Which we're looking at now. It's almost like they wanted to put the big grill in there. I mean, can you see the
silhouette? For anyone watching, I'm zooming in right now. You can see the outline of where it should be.
Yeah, it's like let's put it in there. Oh wait, crap! Nobody likes it. Okay, just like give me some Bondo. Give me some Bondo. Fill that up in there. I mean, it's honestly, I don't think it looks that bad. I really don't. I know some people think that it's just kind of ugly. Yes, the styling, it's overdone. There are too many angles. There are too many vents. But at least on the 2 Series, one, the grille isn't just completely ridiculous, and the lines are rather symmetrical. I mean, just from a look standpoint, I don't think it's that bad.
No, I think it's very busy and has a lot of lines and angles where it probably doesn't need them. However, I think what it improves on is the proportions. It has more classical coupe proportions than the old 2 Series, which was very stubby, kind of fat looking. And this kind of looks more slimmed down, more elegant. And yeah, I mean, the front end, it's like, I'm sorry, BMW, you just can't win, whether you give us the big grill or the small grill. We hate it. But I like the rear end. That's kind of a new look for BMW that you're showing right now with the taillights. And just like I said, just overall, like the hood is a little longer. The greenhouse is set back a little bit more. So I like it more than I hate it. Let's put it that way.
I agree. And, we were having a discussion actually just before we went on the podcast, myself and senior editor Brett Evans. We kind of responded we found ourselves responding in a strange way, in that people, I don't think, are really measuring this car based on its own merits. They're measuring it as how bad it could have been. Like if they, like if they'd gone with the big grill or some other weird design, it's like, we'll take it. It's still not great, but we'll take it because it could have been so much worse. And it's just like such the wrong way to do a car. And I should also quickly point out here, I mean, it is a new car. Rear-wheel drive, you've got the 230i, 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder. It's good for 255 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. In the M240i, that's not an M2. That's just their kind of jazzed up 2 Series. That's got the 3-liter turbo 6, 382 horsepower. That probably sounds a little familiar to most people. That's the same engine you get in a lot of other cars. 369 pound-feet of torque. X-Drive all-wheel drive. The 230i will hit 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds, according to BMW, which is not slow at all. The M240i X-Drive, 0 to 60, 4.1 seconds, 155 mile an hour top speed. Of course, that's governor limited. I mean, those are the straight stats on the car. And we're looking at the base model, I guess.
This is the 230i. So we kind of swap things here. Yep. We did the M240 first, which is the purple car that you saw. Now this white one, if you're watching on YouTube, that's the M230.
And it's worth noting that, I mean, this has a completely different nose. This isn't just a slightly, a car with a different badge. They actually differentiate this quite a bit.
Yeah, the whole lower bumper on both is completely different. I want to ask though, can we hover on the purple a little bit? Like that was not a color I'd expect a car from BMW to debut with.
That's a good point.
Eggplant electric purple.
I love that color though.
Yeah, you like? I don't know that I would ever order a car in that color.
Oh, I think I would totally order it in that color. But yeah.
But where's the gray? Where's the silver? We have white and we have purple.
I don't know what kind of customer they're going after with that color, but I think his name is Chris Bruce, and he lives in Ohio.
But no, I'm thinking about it. It's kind of become the Porsche thing that every time you come out with a new model, and actually Ford has kind of done this too. When you come out with a new model, you come out with an exclusive color for it that you push in all the photos. And I guess this purple is the official color of the M240i, and I dig it. I guess you can buy it in other colors, obviously. So if it's not your style, then get a different color. But
there will be like 20 shades of silver and gray. There always are. But
the white.
I think it's refreshing to not see 20 shades of silver.
I agree. I think in debut pics, like, to show it off, it looks good. It pops. But yeah, I don't think I'd ever order mine in that color.
And I also see BMW trying to aim this towards a younger demographic, which could explain the livelier colors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What else we got? Because we've got a lot of debuts that are happening.
Yeah, we're going to kind of hit these debuts right now. We're going to go through these
pretty quick. But you can always go to motor1.com where you can read all of our debut articles. We have all of these written up, some of them extensively. So be sure to check us out there. What's next, Bruce?
So let's talk about the Volkswagen Golf R Variant, or as folks on this side of the pond would say, Golf R Wagon.
Let me get this tossed up here for you.
Yeah. Steal the show there for me, dude. So it looks like a Golf. It's got the aggressive fascia of the R, and it's got a big old engine. Well, not a big engine in terms of displacement, but big in terms of power. So you get the turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It makes the same 315 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque that you would get in your standard Golf R, but you got room to throw some extra junk in the trunk there. In the back, seats up. Let me see if I'm looking at seats up. You have 21 and a half cubic feet of storage. Rear seats down, that grows to 58 cubic feet. And all-wheel drive. I was kind of thinking about this before the show. This is the Audi RS6 Avant's kind of little brother.
It really is. And I think it looks fantastic. I've always loved the wagon. So I think it looks great with all-wheel drive. Can we talk for a moment? Because this has like a drift mode. I didn't look deeply into it, but come on, it's a wagon with drift mode, right?
Sure. The Golf R has that too. It's that kind of thing that
but
Mercedes
this is a
and BMW. Exactly.
When it's state.
Mercedes and BMW have kind of done, where you just send all the power to the back, and in some cases, all the power to one wheel in the back, and it just slides whenever you want it to.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be the contrarian here because, well, first of all, we're not getting this in the U.S., so this is a European affair. But, and I know I'm supposed to like wagons because I've been an automotive journalist for a long time, but lately I feel quite all right passing over, let's say, a high-performance wagon for a high-performance SUV, because even though they're taller and have higher centers of gravity, what they've been able to make high-performance SUVs do in terms of handling has been like physics defying, like with the software, with the hardware, the suspensions. And I don't believe these days that you need a wagon to feel like you're driving something that's fun to drive anymore. I feel like you can get that in a lot of high-performance SUVs or even sporty SUVs. So don't get me wrong, I appreciate a 300 plus horsepower small wagon as much as the next guy. But I'm fine that it's not over here because we've still got a lot of great family haulers that are high performance vehicles too.
There are a lot of great family haulers that are high performance, but one thing that you'll never engineer out is the center of gravity. And when you have a crossover or an SUV, no matter how good you make the suspension, you're still going to have a higher center of gravity.
Well,
you're still going to feel that. And
you show up in your Golf R. You show up in your Golf R Variant, I'll show up in my Durango Hellcat, and we'll have a race and see who wins.
Oh, that's a horse of a different color.
So we're going to race around a track, because I would take you up on that.
Yeah,
got a point
I'll
there.
just
with actual turns and stuff in it.
No, I'll just leave the track and drive over the grass because I have the ground clearance.
We should, and we should probably say why. Well, we don't know for sure that it will come to the U.S. or not. It's almost certainly not going to.
We will get the standard Golf R, so you'll still get the 5-door hatchback.
Right,
So
you still get the standard.
We know we're getting that. You just won't get that kind of extra length from the wagon.
And when you look at price comparisons, because I think there was some pricing on this.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
It would translate to something like $60,000 in the U.S.
So yeah, it starts at 49,000 euros, which I think right now that's going to be high 50s.
So yeah,
my God,
I mean, who's going to pay $60,000 for a Golf?
But
even if it's cool, it's still going to be a Golf.
Before any commenters nail us on this, generally speaking, it's more like it's $49,000 US, like
right,
because of VAT and different stuff like that. That it's
right.
Generally
the
word's escaping me. The conversion rate is not necessarily what the actual cost would be.
Right.
But yeah. Well,
okay. So what are we going to do next year? We want to talk about.
Let's talk about the Lotus Emira, which Neff was kind of the wet blanket on the Golf, and I'm going to be the wet blanket on this one, I suspect. So we'll see.
Well, I've got some info on the Lotus. I mean, brand new Lotus, not like a tweaked version of something. Brand new Lotus.
First time we've seen that in a while.
A long while.
And this will also be the last purely internal combustion powered Lotus. So take a good look at it. I think we're looking at it now on YouTube.
I will give it that.
Great.
It is gorgeous.
I mean, those. It kind of takes some Ferrari vibes, don't you think, Neff?
Yeah, with that intake in front of the rear wheels.
Yeah, I mean, there's huge Ferrari
but
vibes.
It also still has I think a visual connection to the three Lotuses it's replacing in the front end, where kind of the nose comes to a kind of a point, or the lip of the nose gets really sharp, and I think that comes from the Elise and the Exige and the Evora. So yeah, I think in terms of design, really impressed by it.
I do have that connection there. And
it's going up against some gorgeous cars too. You know, the Alpine A110, the Porsche Cayman.
Yep.
Probably the Maserati MC20 maybe.
No, that's like 911 turbo money. Brand
that's a little more.
So yeah, that's
the other funny thing about this is that it's relatively affordable compared to the other Lotus that's on sale right now, which is the $2.3 million Evija hypercar. So Lotus will have two models. This, which do we know a price of this yet?
We do, don't we? Isn't 60,000 to start? 60,000 pounds, I should say, to start.
So two cars,
somewhere around
100,000 pounds, and then multi-million.
We don't have pricing. I don't think we have specific pricing, especially for U.S. market. But
no, we don't. So I'm looking at it now. Less than 60,000 pounds in UK, less than 72,000 euros in EU markets.
And to say that this slots under the other load, they're night and day. This is going to be. This will be a good.
There's got to be a hierarchy in the model line.
There's got to be a hierarchy. So okay. So we'll call this the base model.
Yeah, this is the entry level.
We don't have specific horsepower ratings yet. Lotus has just said somewhere between like 360 and 400. There'll be two engine options. The supercharged 3.5 liter V6.
That's been in the other three Lotuses forever.
Right, which is Toyota
sticking around. But then they're getting the 2-liter turbo from AMG, from Mercedes AMG,
which is one of the greatest engines
in the A45
on sale right now.
Those are going to be two engine options that you can get. With the turbo, you're only going to be able to get a dual clutch transmission. If you go with a V6, you can still get a manual or the dual clutch transmission. I think some of the bigger news for this, though, I mean, they've really upped the interior. It's got a full digital interior. It's got a 12.3 inch driver digital display and a 10.25 inch touchscreen. They've got a lot more tech in this car, and it is bigger than the previous cars. And that also creates some worry on weight. Now, this does weigh 3,100 pounds. Yep, double checking my stats, 3,100 pounds. I mean,
which by modern sports cars is not bad.
That is really light. But folks used to an Elise, I mean, I imagine it's going to feel completely different inside.
Sure.
Here's my hesitation about this car and Lotus in general. I know when we were talking about it amongst the editors of Motor One, a lot of people were saying this is Lotus, and now Lotus is owned by Geely, and Geely also owns Volvo, and they've been doing great. So now Lotus is going to do great. But Lotus has been dormant for so long. It has sold the same 3 cars with barely any updates or variations for over a decade. And they've also, during the last 20 years, announced that they would revolutionize their lineup like twice, and it just never materialized. They've been on life support, basically. So, yes, they're owned by Geely, and I think that's promising. But it's also been an automaker that has kind of cried wolf a couple times and given us nothing. So do I believe that they can get rid of their entire lineup and replace it with this car and this hypercar, and everything's going to go smoothly on into the future where they have a burgeoning new brand? I don't know. Yes, they have the right pieces in place and the right backer with Geely, but Lotus has just, like I said, it's been dormant, and it has cried wolf a couple times before. So I'm taking the I'll believe it when I see it approach. Right now this is a debut on paper. The car, we haven't driven it. Nobody's bought it. It's not in anyone's garage. Neither is the hypercar. So until those two things start happening, I'm gonna take a wait and see approach.
I think that's fair, and I think those are valid arguments. My issue more comes down to, and everyone is praising the way this car looks, and it does absolutely nothing for me. It does nothing. And I first saw it, and no one else has heard me argue this yet around here. So to me, it looks like the love child of the modern Acura NSX. So you'll see that now for anyone watching on YouTube. It looks like the love child of a modern NSX and an Alfa Romeo 4C. You will see the 4C here momentarily. And
I think you're being a little harsh.
You're probably right.
I gotta say, I'm not seeing the 4C. Where are you seeing the 4C at?
The rear fender vents.
Oh, see, I agree with Smith that's more Ferrari-like.
Okay.
I mean the fender vents. I mean, if you see similarity in the fact that they're openings, I guess.
I mean, look. Mid-engine cars need fender vents like that.
That's totally true. It's nice to see something new from Lotus, but I also have to reiterate kind of what Neff was saying, is that it's kind of put up or shut up time for them. They had that really ugly Danny Bahar period where he promised all those cars, none of which ever happened. They kind of went through a seriously dark time, but they kept the Elise, Exige, and Evora going.
They kept the lights on. They just kept the lights on.
And that's exactly and they did it okay. They did what they could with what they had.
My question now, though, is, does the brand still have the acolytes of Chapman and lightweight and handling still there? Or did those people and that idea and spirit seep out of the company during those dark times? Is this the Lotus that was the Lotus 30 years ago, 40 years ago? Or is this, a Chinese company with the name Lotus?
Oh man,
that's
a deep question for rambling about cars. I need to take a little bit more of a drink here.
Well, that's the wait and see thing, is that I don't know which it is. It looks like a Lotus. It sounds good, but we're going to have to, I think, wait and see with both cars. And I love the sourcing, the top engine from AMG. That turbo 4-cylinder is amazing and produces an insane amount of power for its size. And it's really interesting that this will be the last internal combustion engine from the company, or last internal combustion powered car from the company before it goes all electric. All those things are interesting and sound promising, but just like you guys have heard me say this about electric startup companies, is nothing. They can say anything they want, but none of it means anything until they start building thousands of cars. You can build one car, you can build a prototype, you can build a show car, and you can show it around. And usually companies do that to gain interest and orders and investment, but actually producing thousands doesn't happen more often than not. They don't get that far.
So at this point, you're even doubtful that this car will ever see the light of day?
Doubtful?
Is that
No, not doubtful. Because they have Geely, I think Geely will put enough money into it that it'll get that far. But I think it's more going to be a question of execution.
Okay.
You know?
Well, speaking of execution, let's move on to Bentley and what they're doing with their electrified Flying Spur.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about this, Bruce? I'll bring something up here for us.
Here, I got a photo right here. Well, that's the interior, so you better grab a photo because I thought I had the right one, and I was wrong.
Well, here's a quick look at the outside. How's that?
Yeah. Actually, so this is... you look at this and you think, oh, that's a Bentley Flying Spur, because it is. It looks exactly like what's available now. The difference is the electrified powertrain. Smith, if you could help me out, there is a picture of a woman plugging it in. She has very long, red, curly hair, and that's kind of the image that sets it apart. So you get a 2.9 liter V6 that's turbocharged that by itself makes 536 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque. It'll get to 60 in 4.1 seconds. But in addition to that, you have an electric motor making 134 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. And there's a 14.1 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery. We don't have range info yet.
Actually, I looked it up. It's about 25 miles.
Okay,
that's according to the European range, so it might be a little less than that because the Europeans are a little more optimistic.
And that's pretty standard for what we're seeing with plug-in hybrids.
The number.
Yeah, in 2022, that's going to be the model year of this car. I'd like to see a little more from a plug-in hybrid than 25 miles. But, what I will give this car is that it's significantly more powerful than the Bentayga hybrid, which was Bentley's first plug-in hybrid. It's got, I think, 95 more horsepower than the Bentayga hybrid. So, you're not losing anything over the gas-powered version. You're getting all the power you could ever ask for, plus 25 miles of EV range and much better fuel mileage when you're done with the EV range. So it's another good half step towards Bentley's electrification promise. But this is one of the brands out there that promises to be fully electric by 2030. And there's probably a dozen brands right now that have made that promise. And I would say Bentley needs to get moving. Two plug-in hybrids are a good first step, but they're far from having a fully electric lineup in 8 or 9 years.
But I don't know if I agree with that, only because Bentley is part of the Volkswagen group. We know Volkswagen is literally throwing money at EVs in general and electrified systems as well. Like Bentley could easily be a full EV brand by 2030 because of that Volkswagen relationship. And you called this a half step, and that's exactly what it is. It's a half step. It's a for now. If I'm being honest, this is very much for people in areas where you have like things like London's congestion charge or congestion charges in general, places like China that puts a lot of tax value on EVs that, in those areas, it is valuable to have some sort of electric propulsion when you're in a city center. And that's what this does. So you can still be an ultra rich dude. And if you're penny pinching and don't want to pay congestion charges in London or Berlin or places like that, you can have this.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say you make a good point about Volkswagen. I think the smart play by Volkswagen would be that they are developing new platforms that are good enough to underpin Bentleys and Porsches and brands like that will become the next generation Flying Spur and Continental GT and Bentayga, and they'll be all electric. They'll be designed to be electric from the ground up. I would have to imagine that's what Volkswagen is doing, is working on all electric platforms that a company like Bentley can use that's good enough for a $300,000 to $400,000 vehicle and have huge battery packs with enormous 400, 500 mile ranges. These are the cars that are going to go up against the Lucid Airs that are $200,000 EVs with 500-mile ranges. So hopefully that's in their future. And yeah, until now, this is all they can do, because this is all that will fit in the existing platforms that they have.
Right.
And that was a point that I was about to make, something similar. Bentley's clientele, they aren't really concerned about price. They aren't really concerned about weight. They aren't concerned about noise. I think with what you've seen in a lot of other areas of electric car development, they're trying to figure out how to get something to a broader audience that's concerned about weight, that's concerned about cost. And if you can just throw all of that away, they could just pack this thing, make it 8,000 pounds with enough batteries to take it to the moon, charge 800,000, and they're still an electric car company, and they're still going to sell those cars to their customers, right?
Well, I think their problem is you've got the Tesla Model S and Model S Plaid now, which is
but come on, it's not a Bentley.
Right.
Hold on a second, though.
The interior quality is night.
What I'm gonna say is you've got that.
What kind of car do you drive, John?
Hold on. You've got that, and you've got the Lucid Air, which are both superlative cars. They are best in their class for certain things. The Tesla for performance, the Lucid for range. If you're a Bentley coming in with an all-electric car and you're going to charge $300,000 for it, you can't come in with performance specs and range specs that come in second to those other cars. So I
think you can, because how many Lucid Airs or whatever have been in rap videos, have been around for a century, have basically become the definition of what luxury is.
Bentley, there is brand recognition with Bentley. I mean, you can't deny that. Bentley, even if their stats aren't up to spec, but here's where I think it all goes off the rails. They can put in the batteries. They can juice it up to whatever they need to be at the top of spec, and then they can charge whatever they want, and their customers are still going to buy it.
No, I don't think so. It's not that easy to say you could put in enough batteries to have the highest range, or put in a big enough motor to be the fastest. There's too much innovation happening too fast right now to just throw money at the problem. And I think that's what we're getting into a much bigger discussion about EVs in general. But the fact that they're backed by Volkswagen gives them a fighting chance, I think. Yes, they're going to have their Bentley acolytes who always buy Bentleys, but a company like Bentley isn't like Rolls-Royce. Bentley is trying to sell more cars. They're not just pegging a production number and saying, we'll just sell that and we're happy. They're trying to sell as many cars as possible. So, they can't just sell to the Bentley faithful. They have to attract people too. And in the electric world, it's going to be a different competition than it's been for them in the internal combustion world. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Fair point. Let's jump to the last vehicle that is decidedly not electric.
No.
And this is kind of breaking news a little bit on our part, just because we're recording on Tuesday. Technically, this comes out on Wednesday. We just got some information on it today. It's the Lamborghini Aventador LP780-4 Ultimate, and this is supposed to be the last version of the Aventador. How many versions have we seen? Talk a little bit about this, Bruce, while I bring up some exclusive for us right now photos here.
So I think what is worth talking about here is that in all likelihood, unless something changes, this could be the last naturally aspirated V12 we ever see from Lamborghini. This could be the end of the line. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes this vehicle special. As we look at pictures of it, it looks like an Aventador. It doesn't look particularly special in any way. What
Lamborghini says that they've incorporated aspects of the SVJ, they've incorporated aspects of the Aventador S. They've blended everything together. They tossed it into a pot to simmer, and they came up with the ultimate version. It does have a little bit more power, though, doesn't it, Bruce?
Yep, 769 horsepower. That's 780 in the name. Bentley always uses metric horsepower, which is a little bit more. So it's 780 metric horsepower, or Pferdestärke, or whatever you want to call it. But to us Americans, 769 horsepower. So yeah, it's a little bit more. What is that? 10 more than the other ones, something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge jump, but it's enough of a jump to say, hey, this is This is the pinnacle of Aventador evolution. Lamborghini says it'll do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, 62 miles an hour, 2.8 seconds, top speed 220 miles an hour. They're only going to make 350 coupes, which is what you see here. And then they're also going to make 250 roadsters, which is what we're looking at right now, which is an Aventador without a roof.
That's what it is. It looks like an Aventador. Basically, the engine and that this could be the end of the line is what makes this vehicle special.
We were talking about fender vents before. Man, that thing could suck me in whole.
Yeah, that's powering the pair of jet engines that are apparently back there. Those are some sizable vents. I'm really curious to see if Lamborghini sends this around the Nürburgring.
They will.
I think they have to just to see what it'll do.
Yeah, but you know,
I mean, they say they've injected more carbon fiber here and there, and it's 25 kilograms less than an Aventador S. But yeah, I mean, the takeaway here, like Bruce said, provided everything stays on track, this is the last Aventador, and it could be the last V12 Lamborghini ever.
Naturally aspirated, because there's still going to be the Cyan has hybrid assistance. So this could be the last, another way to put it, the last non-electrified V12 Lamborghini would be. And I mean, legit, it'll be the end of an era. Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about the 1960s.
We were just talking about that with the new Lotus being the last internal combustion powered Lotus. I mean, I think a lot of companies are going to be putting up their last purely gas powered cars before they go at least to complete electrification in terms of, you know, hybridization. And so, you know, not all of them are going straight to pure electric, but
sure. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think the writing's on the wall.
It is. And you know what? I mean, I'll miss the sound of the V12 and I'll miss the naturally aspirated aspect, but electric is the future and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I get so tired of hearing people just kind of be Debbie Downers about it. And maybe we are being a little Debbie Downerish right now, but
I think we're being slightly bittersweet about it just because there's so much history around a Lamborghini V12. But I made this argument in our chat today. Specifically, I made the statement about the save the manuals thing, where there are millions of manually transmission equipped vehicles out there. And if they go away, just buy one.
Just buy. You can buy a used one. There'll be used ones. Hold on to them. Yeah. Keep them. Fix them up. They'll be classics.
At least in our lifetimes. And same thing with gas cars.
Right. You can still enjoy it. You can still enjoy that experience. And then you can also enjoy the experience of a fairly serene, comfortable commute or a ride or a drive with kick you in the butt acceleration and instant torque. I still don't understand why enthusiasts get down on electric cars when you can have that kind of instant thrust. I mean, come on, that's what people build these engines to do.
I'm gonna talk about the Cadillac I drove later on in the podcast this past week. But I drive, you guys know I drive an electric car and I have for a year and a half, and you're talking about the instant torque and how it feels to drive. When I got in the Cadillac and I drove it for like a week on this road trip we took, it was so weird. It was so weird going back to an ICE-powered car and a transmission. I've been driving something with a single speed transmission for a year and a half and going back to a 10-speed. I didn't miss it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, I think you're right, Chris. Like, once people try electric vehicles and see the personality that they have and the advantages they have, and then it basically comes down to I miss the sound of ICE engines, because that's really the only thing that you might like that's better on an ICE vehicle than an electric vehicle. And then at that point, it's like, all right, we'll make some artificial sounds and pump that through the speakers if you really want that.
Yeah, I miss the sound, says the guy with a $3,000 stereo system in the back. So when the engine's on, all you hear is boom, boom. You know, that's
exactly. We can put some rumble strips in the seat so you get the vibration if you want that. I mean, they can do a lot of things these days.
Well, folks, podcast@motor1.com is our email. Shoot us your thoughts. Drop your thoughts and comments on these debuts. And you know what? Talking about the Lamborghini, I mean, end of the V12, end of the naturally aspirated V12. Is that upsetting to you? Are you ready for electric? Let us know. And Bruce, before we move on to Neff's great adventure with the Caddy, let's go over some comments that we had from last week.
Yep, we have two questions we're going to answer that we received. We received some other comments. They weren't necessarily questions, so I'm not going to read them here. But as always, thank you for any comments that we receive. Smith, I know you and we have been trying, either one of us, sometimes both, have been trying to respond to every comment that we get. So if you comment, you've probably heard from us. But yeah, we received two questions that we kind of wanted to hit here. So our buddy Josiah, he reached out to us again, and he said, thoroughly enjoyed the podcast. Have a question for you. If you could drive one car for the next 5 years, what would you pick? What would you pick, assuming there are no reliability issues? So just real quick off the top of your heads, what would you guys pick?
I saw that comment and I was thinking about it, and I don't know, somebody else go, because I'm still
no price limit.
No price limit.
I will give my answer first. I came up with two cars. No price limit. I talked about this earlier. Audi RS6 Avant. But price limit, something I could actually afford and would actually buy. My wife and I have been looking into getting a turbocharged Outback, probably the Onyx. So Subaru Outback Onyx would probably be it.
I would do Model S long range, not plaid, because I don't really care about the crazy performance. I'd rather have the extra range.
Okay.
Reasonable price? That's tougher. I actually am pretty jazzed about the F-150 Lightning. I think that would be totally cool to roll around in.
Okay. Smith, it's your turn.
Ferrari Daytona Spider. Sorry. I got to go old.
Wow. Okay.
So that's your price, no object. Now, what can you afford to drive for 5 years?
I'll just be Don Johnson for like the next 5 years.
I'm not going to fight you.
I'll get the white sport coat. I've always just lusted
after
that
t-shirt
car.
Underneath. You're going to be rocking.
I mean, the V12 with the. The coupe looks good. The coupe is timeless. The Spider,
that was a kit car, by the way.
That was in the show. There was a kit car. Yeah, it was built off the C3 Corvette. Yep. Price is an object.
Yeah, you can afford it. 5 years.
Price is an object. Neff, this is going to surprise you. I think I might go with Mustang Mach-E.
Okay, sure.
It is surprising.
I'm really digging. I've always said I don't have a problem with the car. It's just not a damn Mustang. I'm still against that branding. But I'm not gonna let that dissuade me from loving the car.
That's a great choice. I would almost pick that. I'm really, really impressed with Ford's first two electric products with the Mach-E and the Lightning, and so yeah, that's a good choice, I think.
And then second question, and I answered this one on YouTube, but I'll go ahead and just re-answer it again. Stanley asked, I don't see a modern Subaru Legacy wagon on your site. Does this mean that we will get the Subaru Lavorge wagon in the United States? Maybe even electric wagon like the Visiv, which was a Subaru concept. Not that I can afford it. Haha, the RS6 is nice. It's cool to me. And so as I replied to Stanley, so Subaru hasn't offered a legacy wagon since the generation in the early 2000s, and I believe that's the fourth generation legacy.
Wasn't there a fifth gen legacy turbo
wagon
in wagon in the States?
Not in the state. Maybe it's the fifth gen. I looked this up for when I commented on them, but anyway, it has not been around for 20 years in the United States, a legacy wagon. We've had the Outback, obviously, which is the lifted version, but for a while you could also get a legacy wagon. And then chances of Lavorge coming here, as I told him, basically zero. The Outback is Subaru's best-selling product in the United States, and they're not going to challenge that by introducing a vehicle that does basically the same thing except for sit lower. But I did show him the Solterra, which is Subaru's upcoming EV, which they're going to be sharing tech with Toyota with. And so if they're doing an electric crossover, obviously Subaru and lifted wagons have kind of become a thing. It's hard not to imagine they're going to do that in the future. So
now I'm just double checking, Bruce. I'm showing the fifth gen 29 to 2014 Legacy was actually debuted in New York.
Really? Okay. I'm wrong then. I got to call it. I was wrong. I thought it ended in 04.
I know the Outback took over at some point. I don't know Subarus as well as I should. Darn it! Now I'm feeling a little silly here. But I remember the Legacy because I was tempted to buy an '06 Legacy GT wagon.
Okay.
But
so
that's
instead of saying it hasn't been around for 20 years, it hasn't been around for 10 years.
Yeah, it hasn't been around for a little while. So
okay, so
yeah,
but
good calls there. Good calls there.
But Neff, now it's your turn. You got to tell us about your trip.
Yeah. We want to hear this. How much was that Cadillac Escalade? What was that sticker price on that?
$113,000.
And so
Escalade.
I was joking about this with my wife. What do you think the tiny house that you stayed in cost? Less than
that. Less than that. For sure, less than that.
Well, why don't you explain to the listeners, what this was all about?
Okay,
It's just a little vacation-y trip, right?
Yeah. So my wife and I wanted to go on a vacation for like 4 or 5 days, and we've been going to these campgrounds. They're just called Getaway, and this company took old campgrounds that used to have little lots for RVs really close together, and they got rid of half the lots and planted a bunch of trees so there's privacy, and they put little tiny homes on each in each of the lots left over, and they're really minimalist tiny homes, but they have kitchens or kitchenette and bathrooms and things like that, and it's just there's no cell phone signal out there, so all you can do is eat, sleep, and read. That's basically it. So we like going out there, and the one we chose to go to was in Tennessee. So it was going to be a long road trip, and I thought, as I mentioned earlier, we have a Tesla Model 3 that we drive around, and it's got autopilot and all of that. So I thought, well, why not get a Cadillac Escalade with Super Cruise to do this trip with, and get to try out Super Cruise, the competition to autopilot. And look, a lot of companies have advanced driver assist systems now, but Cadillac and Tesla were two of the first, and have had theirs around for the longest. So I'm very familiar with autopilot. I've driven thousands of miles with autopilot on, and this gave me a chance to put probably 500 plus miles with Super Cruise on. And what I discovered was, in some ways, they're very similar, and in a lot of ways, they're completely different. I think the first revelation was I was way more impressed and comfortable with Super Cruise driving with my hands off the wheel. Because in the Tesla, autopilot requires you to have a hand on the wheel. And if you don't, every 35 or 45 seconds, it'll start flashing and threaten to turn off autopilot unless it can feel the torque of the weight of your hand on the wheel. And I've always liked that. I've always thought that was a good way to keep your hand on the wheel so that you can react quickly if you need to. Cadillac's is completely different. It allows you to go completely hands-free because it has a camera that's watching your eyes. And if you look 15 degrees to the left, 15 degrees to the right, it will start blinking at you and make you look ahead again, or else it'll shut off Super Cruise.
Now, is that like instantly, or I mean, if you see something that catches your eye out of the corner of your eye and you glance over, is that an instant thing?
There's like levels. It'll start with a blinking, and then it'll go audible, and then I didn't go past that to see what it would do next.
Okay.
So you really have to look straight ahead. And that was, like I said, a completely different approach. And I know a lot of people criticize Tesla because it doesn't have a driver monitoring system that looks at your eyes to see where you're looking. And it can also be, its steering wheel torque sensing system can be defeated or tricked if you, and there are people who do this, if you tie a weight to the steering wheel somehow to trick the steering wheel. That's how you get these viral videos of people driving in their Teslas where they're in the back seat and the Tesla's driving itself. They've hooked up weights to the steering wheel. So if you are that determined, you can defeat the Tesla system.
Which just blows my mind, because it's why in the hell would you even want to do that? It makes absolutely no sense. Anyways,
it doesn't look like there's a way to defeat Super Cruise as easily because it's looking at your eyes. I actually tried to. I kept my head in place, and I like looked left and looked right, and I could still tell. It was very sensitive.
Did you try like a pair of like the googly glasses?
I thought about it.
With the eyes already on there? That would be.
But here's the thing. Tesla has sold so many hundreds of thousands of vehicles with autopilot now that we've had a fair number of accidents with autopilot on, and of course many with autopilot off. There's only a handful, comparatively, there's only a handful of vehicles out there with Super Cruise. Even though Super Cruise has been around a while, it's been expensive and it's been very limited in its availability. You know, if there were 700,000 cars with Super Cruise on it, it would be very interesting to see if people had figured out how to defeat it, if there were accidents with Super Cruise on. So I don't think it's really fair to compare the two in those regards. But like I said, I was very impressed with Super Cruise when it was on, and I was comfortable with it driving with my hands not on the wheel. Some things I didn't like about it. It worried me with my hands not on the wheel, if there were an emergency situation that I had to take control, there's more time involved to get my hands from wherever they are onto the steering wheel versus the Tesla where my hand's already on the wheel.
Now, is there on Super Cruise, I mean, is there not various collision avoidance systems that will automatically jump in on that, or no?
Yes, but the Tesla has those too, and it doesn't always work. Sometimes if the system just misinterprets a situation, it'll start driving towards something it shouldn't, or it'll let something drive into it that shouldn't. So that's why both of these systems want you to keep paying attention, because they're not going to guarantee that all of their systems combined can prevent an accident or a crash. And that's why I have to pay attention. But what I found myself doing, just because I wanted to drive comfortably, is I would put Super Cruise on and then absentmindedly like sit on my hands, you know? And like at that point, to get my hands back on the wheel is going to be, you know, even if it's a half a second or whatever it is, it's an amount of time where some very bad things could happen. Also, if I'm getting my hands to the wheel, just the force of me grabbing the wheel at that point could make it do something that I don't want it to do. I could overcompensate and accidentally turn too much or too little. Where again, in the Tesla, I've already got my hand on the wheel. So taking control, I think, is a safer thing.
So a question. So one of the criticisms about Blue Cruise is that it only Super Cruise. Blue Cruise is Ford. Super Cruise is it only operates on certain mapped stretches of road. And I was just curious, since theoretically you can use autopilot. You can use autopilot in more situations. Did you come upon roads, especially in Tennessee, more rural areas outside of your interstates, your highways, where Blue Cruise was not an option, where it was impossible to even activate?
Super Cruise, yes.
Calling it that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It was actually the biggest disappointment about Super Cruise is that it is so limited where it can be used. It can't even be used on all highways and byways. Only the most major. I mean, only the ones that have been mapped, and I don't know. I don't know what led them to choose which highways to map. And also, in its long existence, I looked this up. The map has only been updated once to add more highways. Now, they added a lot, but it's not like they're adding roads all the time. There's only been one major update where it added a lot of new roads. Here's another thing I found out. It'll be working on a major highway, but when you come to a major city, for some reason, I drove through both Columbus and Cincinnati, and as you approach the city, it stops working for like 10 to 15 miles outside of the city. So as I drive into the city, it won't work for like 10 or 15 miles. Then I drive through the city. And then on the outside of the city again, it stops working again. And I didn't understand what that was about.
As someone who has driven into Columbus before, those 10 or 15 miles are always the pieces with the most traffic. So I almost wonder if that's like a safety aid that like, look, this might not work. You need to pay attention.
Yeah, and then as soon as you're not on a major highway, like if you're on a 2-lane highway, probably not going to work.
Sure.
So I would estimate that I mean, the Super Cruise is so limited in the amount of roads you can use it on. And the Tesla, like you said, is designed and keeps increasing where you can use it on any road. Right now, you can use it on any highway, no matter the lanes, as long as the speed is above like 45. And you can use it on city streets too, in limited capacity. Like Tesla is advancing very quickly to be able to use autopilot and then full self-driving on every road at every speed. Whereas Super Cruise, honestly, it works very well, but it seems to be trying to avoid any situation where it might not know what to do. So it will turn off very quickly. It does not. It gives up very easily.
So maybe do you think? I hate to use this word, but maybe it's more like a gimmick. You think?
Well, I was going to use the word novelty.
Novelty. Okay.
I think it has the potential to be just as good as Tesla, but I feel like they chain it down so much, and its use becomes so limited that it is almost like a novelty. I would say it would only go. I would only get to go like an hour of driving before it would shut off for some reason or another. Whereas I could drive the Tesla literally from Cleveland to Pittsburgh and have it on the entire time, and nothing would make it shut off. So I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging Cadillac's Super. I think the technology works extremely well. I think they're being, one, overly cautious with it, and two, they don't really have a plan to keep making it better, to keep making it work in more places, to keep making it work at more speeds. It just kind of is what it is, and that's what it's going to be. Also, their pricing structures are very different. Super Cruise is $2,500 up front, 3 years for free, and then after 3 years, there's a subscription fee. I don't remember what it is. Whereas every single Tesla comes with autopilot standard. However, if you want some of the extra features and the future promise of full self-driving, that is a very expensive upgrade at $10,000 right now. But still, autopilot gives you 95% of what Super Cruise gives you, and it's standard on every Tesla. So I think there's something to be said. I mean, you mentioned that it feels overly cautious for Cadillac, and I think there's something to be said there, because I think a lot of people would argue that Tesla isn't maybe cautious enough. They're running too far, too fast, opening up too many things possibly to people that, as we've seen in some of the viral videos, you're hanging a weight from your steering wheel so you can climb into the back. Why? Just because you can? I mean, Chris Rock once said, I can drive a truck with my foot. It doesn't mean it's a good idea, right? So right, exactly.
Maybe that's the. I mean, I kind of see that as the stance here, and honestly, rightfully so. I'm of the opinion where you know what, this is going a little too fast. Society and the infrastructure needs to change before we really get into full self-drive.
The conclusion I came to is that I think a better system than both would be one that has a driver monitoring system that looks at your eyes and a steering wheel torque sensor that ensures you have a hand on the wheel. I actually think both would be better than either alone, because there are loopholes and disadvantages to both. Like I said, I could be sitting on my hands, or just the reaction time to get to the wheel is long with the Super Cruise, and with the autopilot, you can defeat it pretty easily, and you can, not pay attention with just your hand on the wheel. So I don't think either of them are as safe as they could be. I think they could actually be more like each other and end up with a better system.
Well, John, I know you've got to jump out here pretty quick. Let me ask you one quick question here with regards to the Escalade. It had the full-on digital dash.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just from the swank factor.
Oh, the dash screen was beautiful. It was an OLED display all the way across, which, if you know me, I love my TV technology. I have an OLED TV, and I swear by it. It's like the best thing I've ever bought in my life. And as my wife
have one as well.
Say,
to get that pure black is just
the inky
awesome.
The inky blacks. And so the graphics on the Cadillac's display is just stunning. So major props there. And I was thinking of either the Taycan or the new EQS that has, like 4 or 5 screens. Mm-hmm. I've heard criticisms of those cars that have a bunch of screens because the graphics never work together. The Cadillac's graphics work together. Like it'll have graphics float across the entire 3-foot span of the screen, including both the gauge cluster and the kind of the bigger display that wraps around it. So props to Cadillac for designing a really nice looking, easy to use system that has, the best screen technology you can get.
Is it worth $113,000? I mean, it's a Suburban, really.
You can't. Yeah,
I said it, but is it worth $113,000?
Like I said, you can't. I don't review cars for Motor One anymore because I'm ruined by electric vehicles. I wouldn't pay $113,000 for a car with a 6.2 liter V8 that gets 18 miles per gallon on the highway.
Oh, is that what you got?
That is what I got. Premium, by the way. Thank you. So no, I would never buy this. No, I would wait for. And actually, there's going to be an electric version of the Escalade or an electric, very large SUV from Cadillac one day. So I'll wait for when that happens.
Let me ask you one last question.
Yeah,
you're at this campground. Was there anybody else there with a 6-figure car? Because I'm picturing like a bunch of Subaru wagons.
No,
and you roll in this brand new $113,000 Escalade.
There was.
I want to see that.
No, there wasn't anything I saw quite that expensive. There was a guy who had probably a $70,000 Silverado High Country. Yeah. And he liked to be rolling pretty sharp. So we gave each other the GM wave and passed each other on the trails.
Did you have the lean going on behind the wheel, the GM lean?
Dude, I had my hands in the air. No, I wasn't on a highway, so I couldn't. Never mind.
Awesome.
But it was a great trip, and the Escalade was obviously a great road trip vehicle. And in terms of luxury, it was way better than my Tesla Model 3. It was a bank vault.
Well, it sounds like it was an awesome trip.
It was.
John, I know you've got to jump out, so we'll get things wrapped up here. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me. I love being here.
We love having guests on, especially somebody that's driven as many things as you have with your decades of knowledge in the industry. Always great to have that kind of insight. Folks, you can get us on Spotify. You can get us on Google Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Seriously, we're probably there. Our YouTube channel, Motor One Podcasts, you've been following us there. We've been doing really good the last few weeks on our brand new channel, and we love you for it. We appreciate you for it.
Yeah, subscribe to us there, man.
Subscribe to us there. Of course, the articles are always out on motor1.com every Friday. The vehicles that we were talking about today, you can see all and read all about at motor1.com. Bruce, take us away, man.
Yeah, as always, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Whenever you happen to be listening to us, we appreciate you. We appreciate every listen, every comment, every thumbs up, every whatever it is. We do this for you guys because, we do it for ourselves. Yeah, we do it for ourselves.
We do it for ourselves.
We love talking about cars, but we love the fact that people appreciate us talking about cars, rambling about cars, you might say.
Yeah, and send emails. You guys might not know this, but of course, you two get the emails sent to podcasts at motor1.com.
Sure do.
I get them too. Usually I just glance at them, but I love when people write in comments, questions, and everything. It's so fun to hear you guys answer them and talk about them. So
yeah, and again, one of us responds to every email, if not in some cases both of us, depending on the situation. So, or comment or whatever. So yeah, we love hearing from you folks. And as always, just thank you. So thanks for listening and goodbye.